Hey everyone, hope all is well. Today I just wanted to do something quick and off the cuff for the hell of it. This is just a cool little chordal example that I've been playing around with recently, and I think it could be a good example to take a look at and learn from when it comes to helping us expand our harmonic understanding of things and how we could apply that to playing jazz guitar. Alright, so this example is coming out of a more complete example that I played a few episodes back when I was talking about chordal vocabulary. This is 2 bars of the Ed Bicker example that I played in that video. And if you haven't seen it, I guess you should check it out. But this little snippet of it, this 2 bars, the basic harmony that he's playing over is an F7 for the whole 2 bars. And the way that we can sort of define this or look at this in terms of something that we could use and apply ourselves, it's basically a different chord on every quarter note, even though the harmony is the same, just F7 the whole time. And I actually went in depth into this topic in another recent video, but one thing I was talking about is how for a lot of guitar players who are trying to learn this stuff and figure it out, it could be hard for them to figure out how could I create motion on a basic harmony to make it sound like things are moving, but not moving away from it or changing harmonies, if that makes sense. So the thing that I always say, my first go-to answer for that type of thing is just keep studying different examples of people you like or things that sound good and have been done already, and learn them and see how they fit under your hands. And the more examples you study and inevitably learn and understand, you start to assimilate this stuff more and more over time, where it just makes sense intuitively and you can do it, in a more spontaneous situation, I guess. All right, so F7 for 2 bars, quarter notes, different voicing every time, so we have 8 quarter notes, F7. And basically, the thing to be aware of in order to really get something out of this really shows how just a few basic and common theory, like jazz theory, fundamental things, can go a long way. So the things I'm talking about, these are all things I've discussed on my channel. Lots of other people are talking about all this stuff. It's common knowledge, or things like, just knowing the 5 of a chord. So if the chord is F7, even if there's no C7 written in, but knowing that 5 is how you create tension, you can kind of play things that imply the 5, or literally the 5, to create motion, and that one doesn't really necessarily make it sound like it's going away. It's just the tension, which will then release. So the 5 chord, secondary dominant chords, diminished chords, and how diminished relates to dominant, and things like that, alright? So pretty common stuff. So what does he do? We start on beat 1 in the first bar, and he starts, or at least this is what I worked out. This is actually slightly different from how I played it in the other video, but I was just kind of working with it more, and I don't even know if this is exactly what he plays, but I like what I worked out here nonetheless, alright? So beat 1, we're starting on the actual chord, F7 shell voicing right here, alright? Then from there, all I do is I move the root up to the flat 2 to make it the diminished. This is just your basic dominant diminished relationship, okay? With dominant chords and diminished chords, once you have them, this is sort of separate from the example, but just good to know, they can move chromatically in either direction, and the motion is good. And same thing with the diminished, they're related anyway. If we, for instance, take this F7 chord and then change it into, we can see this is G flat diminished. Well, visually on the guitar, we can see this G flat diminished is essentially just a B7 with the 5th in the bass. So the B7 is a tritone of the F7, alright? So it's the same thing functionally, alright? So beat 1, beat 2, and then once we're on this, I'm going to do what I just said. I'm going to move it up chromatically because I can. From a functional point of view though, this diminished, which I would see as the 2 diminished in the key, if my tonal center is F. Just a quick point, this is kind of arbitrary, but even though we're looking at this example right now as if we're in the key of F, and F is the tonal center, we have a 1-7, technically the example that it comes from, it's really the 2-7 when it's happening in the overall key of E flat major, and the 2-7 functionally, when you have it, it's usually going somewhere, but it's a relatively stable sound as well. You can kind of stay on it and treat it like a 1, or as if it's its own tonal center. So that's how I'm kind of looking at it right now, even though the original context may not technically be in that key of F, but it works just the same. So we're going to look at it like a tonal center of F. This is a G diminished. The 2 diminished, like I've said before, is basically your 5-7. This is the one that people mainly think about when they think of the dominant diminished relationship. but all three of the diminishes are related to a dominant, just not the 5 chord in the key. All right, and you'll see that because I'm gonna in beat 4 now move it up to again to the other diminished. And even though this is the flat 3, I mainly like to label this in my head as like a tonic diminished, like a F diminished. So check this out, all right? The first 4 beats are 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in beat 1 of the next bar, still in F7, I resolve to this. This is a first inversion of a F major triad, so that is the chord, and it's landing in a good spot, like on beat 1 there, so whatever I had in between is like taking me there, and the right chords are landing in the right place. But check this out. If I go back 2 chords to the 2 diminished, this G diminished, I basically said is like a 5 chord, C7 in this case. Alright, now this one, I could see this as a D flat 7, but if we go back to what I said before, like this A flat diminished, I primarily like to think of that diminished in the key as the tonic diminished, which would be F diminished. And this one, I kind of see as like a 4-7, alright? So, if I see this as a 4-7, listen to how these two little variations compare. If I was going to do like a basic blues cadence in the key of F and do like 5-7-4-7-1, right? Listen to how it compares to this. G diminished, right? You can hear they're the same thing almost functionally. You don't have to be too concerned with it, but it could be, you know, insightful to recognize these relationships, basically, all right? Diminished and dominant are very close functionally. They basically are like the same thing, all right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like I said, F major triad. Now here, we can see this as like the 1 chord. This is the only place where I'm actually kind of like, in essence, switching an inversion and staying on the same sound instead of going to like another diminished or dominant. I go from this to this, all right? This is like the bottom part of like, I see this as like a stock shape, like a F13. Technically in the bass here I'd have the flat 7, and this chord on another string set is like this. If we took like a F13 chord and put the root on top, but this is very common and practical on this string set as well. But we can omit this one, alright? And if we look at this, it's basically like almost a major 7 sharp 11, but I'm using it as an F chord, alright? It's good to recognize like the sharp 11, when you add the sharp 11 note, it's the only main chord voicing that will give you like a tritone, like a dominant chord. So it kind of, it's interesting to note this stuff, alright? So let me start at beat 1 of this second measure. 1, 2, alright? Now, if I'm seeing this as F7 and we know about tritone substitution and dominant, I can just move that up a half step and that'll be basically like a C7 or a G flat 7, the tritone sub. It doesn't matter. It's rootless either way, but it's the same thing functionally. Alright? And then from here, I'm playing a basic F9 chord. And this actually works out really cool because if we're seeing that motion is like 1, 5, 1, it's interesting how the bottom half of the chord is still kind of like moving in this direction, because normally you'd think like 1, 5, 1 and bring it back, or maybe do something else like that with the top note, but here it's sort of changing like to the next degree of the scale. Like you could take those two shapes, like even that is like a F13 chord and then like a F9. They voice lead very well together, and it doesn't sound corny to just play like 2 voicings of F7 essentially, 1 in a row. Really rambling here now, right? And those 2 voicings, if we took the common tone out, which is that, from both of them, we'd have this. Just like a major 7 sus 9 type of sound, moving diatonically up and down the scale to the next note, alright? So the whole thing. Alright? Lots of motion without moving away from a basic F7 sound. So I think there's a lot to learn from an example like that. I'll put this in the middle of like a whole blues or something right now, just for the hell of it. So something like... So there you go. So I'm just going to leave that there. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If anyone has any questions or anything they want to say, just put it in the comments. I'm here to help. And in the next episode,
hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey,
I should be returning back to the main topic that I'm currently discussing, which is the mind component of what I do. So, hope you guys are excited for that. Alright, so that's it. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like and consider becoming a subscriber as well as a contributor to Patreon as well, where you'll get all the PDFs on this channel for only $5 a month. And if you think anyone else would enjoy this content, please share it with them as well. And I'll see you guys in episode 95.
Swinging and playing the blues. That's what we about.
I try to help you.